Delegation is the difference between leading your business and being buried by it. But most leaders aren't delegating, they're kind of just dumping tasks. And how you're dumping these tasks depends on your code. And, this means like whether you're handing off work or it blows back in your face. Anyway, hello and welcome to another episode of the Decoded Leadership Podcast. Today we're going to be decoding how each code handles delegation or avoids it. And so today we're going to really talk about how to know how that natural style of yours shapes the way that you ultimately hand off work and why your style really might be keeping you from doing that, and it keeps you in the bottlenecks instead of being the leader that you're called to be. So, we're always going to start off these with the producer, especially in these beginning episodes, because we're going over the 4Ds. The first one is decide. We have to decide. And then once we decide, then we have to learn how to delete. And then after we delete, this is when we can begin to delegate because, right, if you're doing them out of order, you're going to be, like, oh, why don't we, delegate this when honestly it's something that should have been deleted. So today we're going to be going into the third step of the 4D process of how to delegate. So as always, PACE, we start off with the producer. And so what this looks like is you want to hold on to tasks because you, like, again, you sit on the money quadrant of the time wheel. So success is ultimately your driver. And I would say out of all of the four archetypes, you are the one that will delegate the fastest if you understand that there's a definite ROI to this delegation piece. And so what you need to understand is like how to delegate properly, because a lot of times you'll like, okay, if I give this to someone else, then it'll get done. And like, okay, let's go, let's go, let's go. So a lot of this driving energy, but when you do that too much to a fault to get that success, there's this dilution that happens where like I delegated because that's what people said I'm supposed to do, but there's not this focused piece of okay, like delegating with a purpose, with the purpose of creating more ROI in your business. So again, your personality type is the one that will delegate the fastest to get increased money and success results in your business. But then on the flip side, because money and success is your driver, if the people that are going to, take you to that next level, maybe cost too much or whatever. So there's a factor, but you are the people who will invest money to make money faster. So again, you are the ones that will delegate, outsource the fastest, but you have to really kind of dial it down when it comes to outsourcing too fast, because then you kind of lose the quality. And so on the flip side of that, there's also this sense of control that the producers have because of the fight mode. There's like part of that fighting is the control. Like I'm a controller. I'm a producer archetype as well. Like it's one of my hybrids. So I do like the control to keep things. It's like, well, like will you actually bring me to money or success, or will me doing it actually bring me more money and success. And so there's this piece of where you you do delegate fast if you know it's going to produce a result, like, but at the same time you hesitate to do that until you can, trust that this will give you the ROI that is being promised. So what this looks like is they're just overload and overwhelmed, like, because you have the drive to do things faster, there is this overload that happens in your business. And there are bottlenecks that will pop up where the control, right? Like, oh, I want to control all the outcomes. I want to control my success. And for the producer, there's a lot more, I would say, forward facing ego, because each archetype has, and I mean, we all have egos, right? But for this one, it's the money and success part of the ego that will really hinder you from being able to delegate properly. And when this happens, this is where you'll feel that personal attack of burnout. Like, I'm trying to control my success, I'm trying to do all the things, and that leads to burnout. So, what you can do in this regard is delegate the outcome, not just the task. Because again, this is that ROI piece, the money and success driver that you have, right? Delegating the outcome and not micromanaging the task and how it's done. But again, when you do delegate the outcome, define what done means. Done, like, getting my return on this investment in you, in my delegation to you, like to your company, to your agency, to that, like, this is how I define tasks being done. Because, right, if you hire an expert, and again, I said, you guys, out of all the archetypes, you are the ones that will hire an expert the fastest, because you understand, like, hiring the expert will give you the money and success that you need and that you're looking for. You do have to establish ahead of time what success looks like. What does doing and being done with this task look like? So again, it all comes down to the fight, the control, and making sure you are getting your return on investment, because you sit on the money quadrant and money and success. Getting your ROI is the most important part of the whole delegation process for you. Okay, A for activator, right? PACE, the activator is next. So for you, when you're delegating, it's like, oh yeah, like, I have this idea, go run with it. You don't give enough context. And so because the ideas come, and it's kind of like you expect people to read your mind when you're delegating. It's like, because your ideas and thoughts move so quickly, it's like, oh, I had this idea, and then I delegated it, and then yeah, like, you can do it, right? Because even in your senses, like the physical senses, the five senses, yours is probably like a seer or a sight thing, or maybe you're a feeler, right? You feel things. So that sensory piece is something that is embodied and internalized. When you say the words, you mean those feelings, you mean those sensations, but the people that are receiving your download are not, they're not receiving also the sensations and the feelings that you got with this idea download. So there's not enough context. And again, flight, right? Flittering around, like, I have this idea. And you're so eager to, like, drop the idea, to delegate. Hey, you got it. And you want to move on to the next thing. Again, right? Flight mode, flittering around. And also, on the flip side of that, when you are delegating, it's like, how can I get this off of my hands as possible? Because again, for you, the devil's in the details. Like, the faster I hand this off to someone who's more capable, more competent, the faster I can move on to my next idea. And so you hand things off without giving the details because you actually want to skip that part. Yeah. And I get it. Like there are people who are verbal processors that sit in this quadrant. So there's also that flip side of giving uh too many details. But if we're looking at just the pure essence of each quadrant, the executioners, right? The evaluators in the execution piece and the energy piece, they are the ones that really sit on the details. Details are important to them. So they will have more of the details as opposed to the activator who sits in the ideas quadrant. It's like, dude, I gave you the idea. Like, don't you get it? Don't you feel it? Like, just run with it. Do the thing. And right, if you're hiring someone on the opposite side of the wheel from you, they need the details. So, um, right, when we don't give the people the details, it's like you think they got it, but they didn't actually get it. So it creates a lot of rework. It's like, and see, I have this, like I have the producer and I have the activator in my system. So how I delegate, just for example, to I actually factor in rework into my strategy. I have the idea. Case in point, today I had a meeting with my team and we're building out, the system, and the person building it, she's fairly new to our team. And she's like, but like, this is what I'm seeing. I'm confused. I don't know what to do. And I said, okay, well, have at it. You know, do your magic, do whatever feels good, and then I'll come back and I'll evaluate what you've done and tell you what changes to make. But I've included that in my process because I'm that ideas person. I'm like, look, just do what you do your magic, and I'm okay with paying for the reworking. And and then there was this piece of like eliminating the confusion because she's like, well, I'm confused because this is looking like this, that's looking like that. How am I going to help her reduce the confusion? Because if you don't reduce the confusion, this is what leads to frustration when you're trying to delegate for both parties. It's how can I, as the ideas person, and like not wanting to get into the detail, like wanting people just to get, like, don't you get me? Like, don't you get, like, don't you feel it? Like, isn't this the best? We eliminate confusion and frustration because that will cut the cost of this delegation piece in our businesses. So, how we do that is one, we share the why. You can get that feeling stuff out like, oh, I want this to feel like this. When people look at it, like say you're fixing your website, oh, this is the vibe that I want people to feel when they come to my website. So, right, that's part of sharing your why. Like, this is why we're doing this project. This is why, like, give them all the feels because without that context, right, they will end up going in a different direction. Then also give them the window. Okay. And this is harder for you as activator type. It's like, here's the why. Here's the window. Like that's where you have to set the details. Because what does good look like? Like we talked about that, with the producer, but what is this window? Like, what's the time frame? What does like what are the expectations? And also the win. So it's the why, the window, and the win before you hand things off. And of course, it's alliteration because I'm you. I'm that person. Like, what was I supposed to do again? Like, I'm so caught up on the ideas. Like, oh yeah, the three W's: why, window, and win. So if you're not writing things down, you don't have to. Why, window, win before you hand off as an activator. So next up, we have the connector, PACE, the connector. And so what this looks like for you is You kind of only want to assign the easy stuff to people because you're trying to protect your relationship, because you feel like, oh, if I give them something hard, like, what if they hate me? What if this is too much, too difficult? What if they ghost me? Right? Ghosting is a very real thing that happens in business when you hire contractors online. But like the ghosting really does something to you. Like it activates that part of you that the abandonment, the rejection wound, like that will activate in this. And so like you don't want to scare anybody off, because if you do scare them off, one, you're not going to get the things done that you paid for. And then two, right, that relationship building is super important. Peace, harmony is very important to you. And so you really focus on the care and the loyalty piece. Um, And again, nervous system default for you as a connector is the fawning. But when we fawn too much as a leader, especially in delegation, you, like I said, you avoid giving people tough assignments. You avoid giving critical feedback. You're like, oh yeah, it looks okay. And what ends up, it costs you time, right? Because you sit on the time quadrant of the time wheel. It costs you time because instead of confronting, right? You're in conflict avoidance. Like, looks great. I love it. And you oversell that part, and you end up actually redoing the thing because it wasn't something that you liked. And so delegation for you, I think out of everyone, in order of difficulty for release, you are third. So just like off the top of my head, you like it is in order. Like the producers first, the activators second, because they're like, yay, all the ideas, somebody do them. I don't want to do them. I don't want to execute. Somebody do it. And so you are third because the evaluator, we're going to get into that, like because they're so detail oriented, they have the hardest time delegating because if I don't do it, it's not going to get done perfectly. So let me take it back. But before we go there, the difference between like not wanting to release because it's not going to be perfect is different than not wanting to release and delegate because you're trying to protect the relationship. Because the evaluator, they honestly, not that they don't care about relationships, but it's not that important to them. So they don't mind hurting people's feelings to protect their own asset. Like I want things to be perfect, so I'm protecting my perfectionism by being super critical and harsh in my feedback. So, um, as the as a connector, right, where it's going to cost you is team growth building, right? You're slow to release, so you're not building the skills in your team, and you keep taking things back. It's like, oh, like, okay, let me just like, okay, you do this and then I'll finish it. But you don't tell people that you're finishing because you don't have the guts to tell them that they did it wrong. So it's like, okay, oh yeah, it's great. And then you end up redoing it all anyway. And they're like, what is that? Like, what happened? And so you end up staying overloaded as a leader because you didn't actually delegate. You're being too nice about it. And so how like the fix for this gap is finding a match, right? You want to match the tasks to your team members' growth edge. Like not, I mean, yes, you actually like would need to hire someone that you know and you trust is good, and you know that when I give this thing to that person, like I'm not going to offend them. Like nothing's going to happen to our relationship. So, but on the flip side, hiring someone that's a super expert at what they do may be out of your price range at this point. So you may have to hire someone that is not as skilled and autonomous. So right, your people are going to have to do double duty in the beginning. So you have to lean in to their growth edge and matching the task that you delegate to their specific growth edge. Meaning, we all have an edge, right? But you want to expand them and make sure that you're growing. Um, and as a leader, right, your team is growing because, right, as your business is growing, you want your people to grow and evolve with you. And if you're too focused on like not hurting their feelings, how are they really going to grow? Right. So last but not least, we have the evaluator. And again, I love you guys, but again, analysis paralysis is your Achilles heel. And you overanalyze, you know, what am I going to outsource? Who's going to do it? Are they good enough? And so this overthinking, overanalyzing is what nips you in the butt every time. And this is also like the energy quadrant. It sucks, like this sucks energy. And because of the perfectionism, like you really want to avoid mistakes because this is also your wound. You probably had a critical parent growing up. And so you were highly criticized growing up. And this is also how it affects your team. Like because you were hyper criticized when you were growing up. Like criticism to your team doesn't even seem like it's a thing. Because I have a client who's like very critical towards her team and she sees nothing wrong with it. And it's like, well, that was kind of harsh. Like, you know, like, did you really mean that? And she's even admitted that. And like, I don't know. Cause she had someone come into her business and do like a leadership assessment on all the team members and what have you. And she was like, I don't know. The person who did the evaluation said, I need to really praise them more, but why am I going to praise them when it's not done the way that I want it done? It's like, whoa, so there is this balance that, as an evaluator, as like someone who has more of a critical eye and personality, one, you need to tone it down so that when you do delegate, the people are not like being so turned off that, or they're not turned off specifically, but they're scared. They're scared to make a move. They're scared to make decisions. So your freeze, right, your analysis paralysis and your need for perfectionism and, the critical spirit that you have, the wound that you have, it also rubs off on them. And so like everyone tends to freeze because, right, nobody wants to be criticized for what they do. Like you didn't when you were growing up and your people don't either. So, and those who are aware of their critical nature and their propensity towards perfectionism, they actually delay handing things off because it's like, nobody's going to do it as good as I do. So it's faster. You know what? It's just faster if I do it. And honestly, it is faster. But if you're trying to scale, this is that piece that is holding you back from business growth, like hands down. So not only is it costing you like lost time because your time is valuable. So handing things off is going to buy you back that time that you so desperately need because you're burnt out and you're stressed out and you're like, oh my gosh, like I have no time to myself. It's because you keep taking things back, just being honest. And then you also have the cost of missed opportunities because you're so focused on getting everything perfect. Like you won't send in an application or like you won't submit your TEDx video because like it's not good enough yet. Let me make sure that it's perfect before I even submit the thing. And like next thing you know, it's like, oh, we've already selected our candidate or something. So here's where it gets tricky. I tell my clients who are stuck in this evaluation mode, 80-20 rule, 80-20, like, can you release it when it's 80% good? Can you call it? Or like, are you able to delegate it even at 70%. Like, do you have 70% certainty that it will be okay if you delegate it? So, right, one, decide on your percentage that is less than 100. Even if you do 90, 90 is better than 100 because at 100%, you will never release, you will never delegate because you're always going to want to hold on to the task because you're the only one who can get it perfect. And I get that. I honor that. I respect that. But at the same time, if you want to scale, you have to learn how to delegate and release. So, um, like we said in the beginning, right? Our delegation style is shaped by these codes, by the way that we live. And again, today I mentioned the wounds and the wounds of criticality, the wounds of severed relationships, fear and abandonment, rejection, and all of that. These wounds are feeding the nervous system reaction, the knee jerk reaction that you have in your business. And so again, we're going through the 4Ds: decide, delete, delegate. And the next episode, we're going to talk about documentation because you delegate, but also you have to create SOPs and document how you're going to be handing all of these things off because it doesn't make sense to delegate if you have no SOP. And so, right, until you decode how you want to do these things, like how you're actually wired to do these things, you're going to stay bottlenecked in your business. And the way that we do that here is getting you on a decoded session, like decoded leadership. We decode all of these things that are keeping you stuck, keeping you bottlenecked. And once you uncover that exact coding and we go through the audit process, we look at all the facets of the time wheel that are really keeping you stuck and building you an approach to this delegation process. It's really going to free you up. I mean, you already know this, right? Delegation is the way, but how you delegate is going to make it more easy, more effective, and getting you to actually do it, delegate. So again, if you need help with this, if you're like, Kylie, I'm listening to you. I understand I have these codes, but for whatever reason, I'm having this visceral reaction to actually delegating anything. Like, can you help me? It's, of course, yes. Book your decoded session and we're going to go through all of it. And when we're on the session, we're going to look at time, ideas, money, and energy, all the quadrants. We're going to look at your default nervous system patterns. And again, you have a primary pattern. You're not only in fight mode. There are things that are in your environment that shift the way that your nervous system will respond. So there's that as well. But like having all of these decoded and understanding, oh, this is that. Oh my gosh, that is that. Like the clients who come through these sessions are like, whoa, like this is amazing. I didn't even realize that I'm having this knee jerk reaction, this response that is keeping me stuck in my business. So anyway, I digress. Book your session now. It's the link is in the show notes, and I hope to see you at a decoded session. And as always, thank you for listening to the Decoded Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Kylie Ota, and we'll see you again next time. Bye.